What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing Naruto story. What if Naruto gets Hokage daughter pregnant? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Three figure were walking down the road to Konoha. One of them is 6 feet 6 inches and a man with long white hair. The next is a smiling blonde, with spiky hair on his head, who stood at a 6 feet 0 inches in an orange and black jumpsuit with a red cloak with black flames on the bottom. Finally, the last one was a 5 feet 7, lime green hair, holding her swollen belly, laughing at whatever the blonde said. They were Jiraiya of the Sannin, Naruto Uzumaki, and Fu. They had picked the girls up in Taki when Naruto had accidentally mentioned he himself was a Jinchuriki. After that he was sought out by the girl, who was a year younger than the 15-year-old. After talking, they had become friends. After she was given permission to join Konoha from Shibuki, she had traveled with the two men. On the trip, she and Naruto had hit it off. Soon after, they fell in love. It had started out innocently, but then it became more serious. After a night of passion, expressing their love for each other, Naruto had proclaimed for the world to hear that he loved Fu. They had been in their relationship for 8 months when they got the shock of a lifetime. Fu was pregnant with Naruto's child. After confirming it, Naruto trained his hardest to get stronger and protect his new family. Jiraiya had found that the boy had a knack for 3 elements and taught him as many as he could. It was through this training that they found he could use wood release, shocking the hell out of the Sannin. It was then Naruto requested sage training. Seeing nothing wrong with it, they went to. There Naruto quickly grasped the training, being proclaimed a sage soon after. Then, the boy talked to the Kyuubi, no insulting or anything. After the boy had been able to control up to 5 tails of the yoki. As the group of 3 got to the gates, Naruto wrapped his arm and brought her closer. They passed the gates, ignoring the Chunin guarding them. As they walked down the street, Naruto excused himself and climbed a pole. "Hey Konoha, Uzumaki, Naruto is back." Fu giggled at his attitude. She had been ecstatic to learn she was pregnant with her lover's child. Fu had been scared at first, thinking that the Akatsuki would get to her before she gave birth. Naruto had assured her that, come hell or high water, he would protect her with his life. Naruto looked down when he heard his name being called, and saw his teammate, Sakura, next to Jiraiya. Frowning, he jumped down. "Hey Sakura, how have you been?" Smiling wistfully, the pink-haired banshee answered, "Good. I noticed that you seem more mature. Do you think I'm more womanly? You'll always be the same to me." It was at that moment, and a shout of jutsu, that their attention was turned to a naked brunette. Sakura was shocked, Naruto was pleased, and Fu was giggling. The woman turned into a grinning Konohamaru. "What did you think, boss?" Smiling sagely, Naruto said, "Konohamaru, I'm too old for those things. And you shouldn't use them either." Sakura was swooning about his maturity when he said, "Besides, I have a future Mrs. Uzumaki to take care of. You see the green-haired girl? She is pregnant with my child." Sakura had a look of rage on her face. Naruto forcefully impregnated a girl? Naruto, you idiot. With a swing of her arm, Sakura launched her fist at the blonde's head. Instead of making contact, he caught it. "Sakura, do not do that again." Walking past the stunned girl, Fu wrapped Naruto in a hug. "Naruto, we need to speak to the Hokage. Come on, I want to meet the woman you have the gall to call Granny." Nodding with a smile, Naruto waved back to the shocked Konohamaru Corps, and walked away with Fu, Jiraiya and Sakura in tow. They made it to the tower and Naruto smiled at seeing Tsunade. Walking up to his surrogate mother, he hugged her. "I missed you, Tsunade." Smiling and reciprocating the hug, Tsunade said, "I'm glad you're back." Now, in the pervert's last message, he said you had, impregnated this girl. Care to explain? Still smiling, he replied, "I love her, and she loves me. We went to Takigakure near the middle of the trip, and she came with us. Our relationship took off from there." Sakura scowled, and asked, "What about me? Your promise?" Naruto looked at her and said coldly, "What about you and the promise? I'll still fulfill it, but Sasuke will be in pieces. You never designated whether alive or dead." Sakura was shocked. This wasn't the same boy who loved her. This was the Naruto who had grown up and found love with someone else. "We may have a problem in the future. Because Fu and I are both Jinchuriki, our baby will be too. It will be born with a new biju sealed in it. Naruto said seriously. Please, Granny, when it comes time, will you deliver it? Tsunade asked, you do realize that makes me the godmother, right? Grinning, the blonde nodded. I talked with Fu, and she said it was okay. Fu nodded as well, you will be a great godmother. After, they talked, which involved Kakashi being given a new Icha paradise. Naruto was told to be at Training Ground 7 for an evaluation. Naruto then asked, hey, Granny, can I be promoted to Chunin? Caught off guard, the busty Sanin asked, why? They get paid more. I need to buy a better home. There is no way a baby would survive in my old neighborhood. Besides, there isn't enough room there for us and a baby. Seeing the logic, Tsunade cleared her throat. Uzumaki Naruto. As Hokage of the village of Konoha, I humbly present you the position of Chunin. Do you accept? Hi. After handing him a vest which he put on under his coat, Naruto let slip some tears. Seeing this, Fu got worried. What's wrong? Smiling softly, Naruto said, I wish old man Hokage could see me now. He would have been so proud. Leaving the office, they made their way to the new home they had been given by Tsunade. It was a 2-story home with 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. It had a fully stocked kitchen and a sizable backyard. It was located near the Hokage Tower in the Shinobi district. Getting settled, Naruto and Fu quickly went to get food. After having some ramen, they returned home, only to find Sakura there. Do you need something, Sakura? Yes, what happened to you? Why are you like this? Sighing, Naruto replied, I'm going to be a dad, Sakura, I have to be more mature. A baby needs good parental guidance and structure. But don't you love me? Scowling, Naruto brought Fu closer. Sakura, you're like a sister to me. What about Hinata? She doesn't love me, she loves the idea of me. She put me on a pedestal and constantly compares herself with me. A relationship can't work like that. Now if you excuse me, I need to go inside and get ready for tomorrow. With that, Naruto entered the house and sat on the couch, Fu beside him. If anyone looked, they would have seen a young couple, no problem in the world, sharing a moment in their new home. Turning on the TV, yes, a fucking television, they watched a show about some guys who made duck calls. They thought it was called Duck Dynasty or something. They fell asleep after laughing at the person, sis, weirdness. And they stayed like that all night long, holding each other, knowing that no one understood them better than them. They knew that, no matter what, they would give this child something they never had. A family. It had been 2 months since Naruto had come home. In those months, he had gotten reacquainted with the other rookies, except Hinata. She ran away anytime she saw him. In those months, he and Fu had converted one of the rooms in their house into a nursery. They had painted it a light yellow, with orange and green trim. Naruto's test had gone off without a hitch, using actual tactics and his skills while keeping his affinities a secret. In short, he had earned his Chunin vest. Naruto and Fu had been officially married 2 weeks after their return. All the rookies, save Sakura and Hinata, plus their Jonin senseis had been there. Jiraiya had commented about how proud he was of Naruto. Naruto replied by saying that he was proud to have a role model like him. Kakashi had asked if, when the baby was born, if he could be its sensei. Naruto asked Fu, and she agreed. When asked for names, they told what they had chosen. Kazuo if it was a boy, and Mito if it was a girl. When asked why, they had stated that their child would be the inheritor of the entire village's wall of fire. Naruto groaned as he sat up. It was the morning and he had to get ready for the day. He turned to Fu and kissed her cheek, deciding to let her sleep in. He gently rubbed her even more swollen stomach. She was 7 months pregnant now, and Naruto had sent a letter to Gaara to come by the village for a visit. He was arriving today, as his schedule as case cage kept him busy. Standing up, he made his way quietly to the kitchen. He had the day off and decided to spend it with Gaara and Fu. Cracking some eggs, he set out to make some breakfast. As he moved through the kitchen, his mind wandered to Sakura. Anytime he went out with Fu, she would follow them and glare at the green-haired woman. Naruto had paid it no mind, but if she didn't stop, he would make her stop. His thoughts then turned to Konohamaru. The young Sarutobi had been ecstatic to learn that his boss was going to be a dad. He had been helping any way he could, and it made Naruto wonder if he should take the Jonin exam so he could lead the boys' genin team. His musings were cut short by a pair of slender arms wrapping around his waist. Chuckling, he said, "Morning, love." "Morning. That smells wonderful. When will it be ready?" "In about 5 minutes. Could you set the table?" "Sure." 3 hours later, Naruto and Fu sat in the living room, watching TV when a knock on the door was heard. Getting up, Naruto opened the door. Standing there was Gaara, as stoic as ever. "Gaara, welcome. Please do come in." "Thank you. I got your letter and would like to say congratulations on your marriage and soon-to-be child," the sand user said as he entered the abode. Introductions were made and they sat and visited for another 2 hours until another knock was heard. Getting up, Naruto opened the door only to be thrown across the street. Recovering quickly, Naruto rushed into his house to see Sakura captured by a fist of sand. Struggling, Sakura tried to break free. After tiring out, the pinkette said, "Let me go. I need to teach that harlot a lesson on what happens when you steal my pet." Naruto's face was an emotionless mask. He calmly went outside and called for an anbu. When one arrived, he sent the person off to find Tsunade. When the busty Hokage arrived and was informed of the situation, she took her apprentice to her office for some words as Naruto comforted his wife. Hokage office. Tsunade sighed as she looked at Sakura going on about how Fu was a whore. Having enough, she slammed her hand down on her desk. "Enough. Sakura, Fu is Naruto's wife and the mother of his child. He loves her as much as she loves him. I have had enough of your idiocracy. From now on, if you seek out Naruto for anything other than a mission, you will be sent to prison with your chakra cut off." Dismissed. Sakura left silently. Tsunade sighed again. She was worried about the baby. If either Hinata or Sakura got their hands on it, they might do something drastic. She would speak to Naruto at a later date to see about some more permanent protection. For now, she would just drown herself in sake. The Uzumaki household. That night, Naruto was reading when Fu walked in. She was wearing a shirt with the number 7 on the back. She had on only her panties as she snuggled up against her husband. She was scared. Sakura had been trying to kill her, and by extension, her baby. Even though it has yet to be born, she loved it. It was the product of 2 Jinchuriki and was going to be a natural-born one, something that has never happened before. She didn't know that it would be the 10-tailed beast, but didn't know what kind of beast. Shutting her eyes, the green-haired girl drifted off to sleep. 2 months later, Naruto waited anxiously in the waiting room of the hospital, Jiraiya on his right, Kakashi on his left and Iruka in front of him. All of the rookies, besides Sakura and Hinata, were there too. Gaara had even made his way in, sitting with his arms crossed. Fu had gone into labor that morning and had been rushed to the hospital. She had been in there all day, and Naruto was worried. After another hour of waiting, Shizune walked in. "Naruto, come see your baby." Springing forward, he sprinted down the hall to Fu's room. When he arrived, he saw his beautiful wife holding a blue bundle, the sign that it was a boy, to her chest. She looked up at him and smiled with tears in her eyes. Naruto walked slowly across the room, and picked up his son. The child had dark green hair and dark blue eyes. He smiled and shed some tears. His 17-year-old mind was racing. He had a son, a family. He was excited, scared, and happy all at once. Naruto spoke softly, so he wouldn't wake him up. "Hey, little guy. I'm your daddy. Kazuo, my little man of peace. Your mother and I love you so much." Jiraiya put his hand on the new father's shoulder. "Naruto, I need to examine his seal." Putting the newborn life in the hands of his mother, Naruto unwrapped it and saw the seal. Jiraiya whistled, "Damn, that is one perfect seal." Raising an eyebrow, Naruto silently requested he explain. "Well, the seal's main function is to siphon off a large portion of the demonic chakra and cleanse it. But it also gave him a new bloodline apparently. I don't know the exact details, as I need more time to examine the seal, but apparently, it has one more function. The demon cannot be unsealed unless it is willingly unsealed." "So you mean?" "Yes. Even if the Akatsuki got him, they couldn't get the demon out of him without his permission." Smiling at his son's safety, Naruto looked at Fu, who started to feed. Tsunade walked in after getting cleaned up. "Naruto, congratulations. What did you name him?" "Kazuo. Man of peace? Nice." The 2 Sannin left the room so that the young couple could spend time together. They knew that the coming years would be difficult, but they had faith in their favorite blonde shinobi could handle it. Naruto stood as Tsunade addressed him. He had been called in after last night to address a matter dealing with Hinata Hyuga. Apparently, she had questioned the legitimacy of Naruto and Fu's marriage, stating that Fu wasn't an official villager yet. Now here he stood, his arms crossed as he looked at the female Hyuga with disappointed eyes. He knew she would do something like this. Just as Sakura was bitter over his marriage and child, Hinata was angry. He could tell by the rage that burned in her once gentle eyes. She had a glare locked on him as he stood there. Finally Tsunade spoke. "Hinata, I have just one thing to say. Naruto and Fu are married. She was transferred to Konoha from Takigakure several months ago, and has been under Jiraiya's watchful eye. She is the new mother of Naruto's child, and I want to know why you can't accept this." Hinata said coldly. "That slut is just a foreigner, someone who took what is mine. I was supposed to be Naruto's wife. I was supposed to give him children, not some whore." She continued to rant. "I loved Naruto, gave him silent encouragement. I was the one who healed him after his fight with Kiba, and I was the one who supported him, even if by the shadows. Not the green-haired bitch. As for his son, I think that he should have a paternity test done. No doubt she slept around in Taki." Naruto had had enough. "Hinata, he is mine. I know this because we look so much alike. And as for your accusations against Fu, I have one thing to tell you. How much pettier can you get? You supported me from the shadows, but where were you when I starved at night? Where were you when I was being beaten? Fu and I love each other, we have a home and a family together. Can you not be happy for me?" Naruto looked at Tsunade and said, "If that is all," and left. With Naruto. Naruto found the person he was looking for at the training grounds, as usual. He called out to Lee, and after gaining the boy's attention, he said, "Lee, I have a favor to ask you." "What is it, my most youthful friend?" the green-clad boy asked. Taking a deep breath, Naruto said, "I came here to ask you, after a long talk with Fu, to see if you would be interested in being Kazuo's godfather." Quote. Lee looked shocked before he gave a smile. "I would be honored, Naruto. Would you care to go and get some food with me? I have a date later." Naruto raised his eyebrow at Lee. "A date? Really? Anyone I know?" Lee nodded as he said, "Yes, I have a date with." Lee blushed as red as a tomato as he said, "Ayame Ichiraku." Naruto looked at Lee, shock written on his face before he grinned and clapped the boy over his shoulder. He was happy that bushy brows had found romance. The boy had been worried that he would never find a wife, but Naruto had a feeling that if he played his cards right, he might not be the only father amongst his generation anymore. "Atta boy Lee, Ayame is like a sister to me, and I know that you would treat her right," he said as they walked. They arrived at the ramen stand and ordered, Lee and Ayame blushing when they saw each other. Naruto laughed at that. He knew Lee was a good guy. He just knew that the two would hit it off. It was as if an incredibly handsome man was sitting at a computer typing his thoughts. Shaking the thoughts that he was just the subject to a very well-written story on an international website that had gotten so many good reviews that the owners of said website gave him $7 million. They ate their ramen and talked. Lee inquired about Kazuo and Fu, and Naruto told him that they were both still at the hospital, having spent the night to ensure that they were fully healthy. Lee told Naruto about his training and his promotion to Jonin, and Naruto suggested that the two make a team after finding a third member. They got so wrapped up in talking, that they didn't notice that Kiba had been walking by, an angry scowl on his face. The Inuzuka heir had been angry that Naruto had been the first of the rookie 9 to get laid and have kids, even more so that Naruto had a smoking hot wife. Kiba had tried to get close to the girl, but anytime he did, Naruto or someone else would interfere. He knew, in his dreams, that if he could lay on his Inuzuka charms, the green-haired girl would be his. And so when he heard them talking about a third teammate, he got a devious idea. Walking up to the two, he said, "Hey guys, I just overheard that you two were looking for a third teammate. Well I, Kiba Inuzuka, am more than willing to join." Naruto looked at Kiba, his eyes hardened. He knew that the Inuzuka lusted after Fu. He had smelt the hormones coming off him. So whenever the boy would get near her, he intervened, making it known that she was his wife. "Sorry Kiba, but we already have Shino as the best teammate. While we fight our enemies, he drains them of their chakra. A deadly team." Kiba scowled as he turned and left, his plan now in ruins. He deserved the green-haired girl, not Naruto. He walked through the streets of Konoha a few hours before he was pulled into an alley. Looking at his abductors, he was shocked to see Sakura and Hinata were the ones who had abducted him. Hinata gave a very snake-like smile as she said, "Kiba, we have much to talk about." Birds chirped. The sun shined out over the village of Konoha as the populace awoke. Tsunade entered the Hokage office and sat in her chair. After a few moments to get ready for the day, she formed cross-hand seal, a grin on her face as she said, "Shadow clone jutsu." In a poof of smoke 10 exact replicas of her appeared. They all grabbed a pile of paperwork and began to sort and work through them. She loved that jutsu. After begging Naruto to teach her the secret, he did, and she got all of her work done faster. Which meant more time for drinking, and more importantly, watching over Kazuo for Naruto and Fu. The couple had spent the last year of their lives with their new child, and they were the happiest family. While Fu wasn't able to continue being a ninja, due to her chakra being permanently constricted due to the birth of her son, she was able to dig through some old papers in the office and discover Naruto's parents. Hence why she was in charge of the Namikaze Uzumaki compound. She did a wonderful job at it too. After seeing what was easily an entire district of the village in disuse, she had immediately set out to open it up for any business that wanted space or a new place to set up shop. All they had to do was pay a portion of their profits to the now-known Namikazes, and they were allowed to keep their shops and stalls. And while the council bitched and complained, she was now a member of the civilian council due to her being in charge of a large new portion of Konoha. It was partially due to her skills in math that the village had expanded to now include a second, outer wall. It amazed her how smart the green-haired girl was, and she was already thinking of expanding her growing monopoly. But all this work didn't hamper the mother's time with her son. Oh no. She spent a good portion of her day with the 1-year-old, and she was seen frequently walking through the village with both the younger and older Namikaze males. Speaking of Naruto, he had been officially promoted to Jonin 6 months ago, a proud day for the young man. He was very well respected by all of his peers, and he was even thinking of taking on a team. After finding out about his family, he had at first been angry and depressed. But after speaking to Tsunade and Jiraiya, he had understood why the Sandaime had lied to him. After the announcement of his heritage, many people had targeted him for assassination. All of them failed, but due to the frequency of them, Tsunade decided to make Kazuo and Fu's safety on par with hers. She loved her godson very much, having volunteered to watch him for the couple when they went on dates around the village. Hell, even Shizune had bonded with her nephew and offered to watch him when they needed it. Tsunade was even expecting to watch Kazuo today as Fu and Naruto spent time together. And while they were busy, they always had time for each other. Tsunade suspected that they were trying to give Kazuo a younger sibling. As for Kazuo, he was energetic and happy. And while he did take after his father for his looks and behaviors, he seemed to have his mother's intelligence as well. The boy had, in front of the eyes of many witnesses, managed to fit colored blocks in the right spots in a toy and put the right shapes in the right holes in another toy. Something normal babies shouldn't be able to do. Jiraiya had explained that, as a naturally born Jinchuriki, the demon inside the boy was also growing with him. He theorized that the demon was somehow expanding the mental capabilities to better ensure their mutual survival. As for the white-haired Sannin, Jiraiya had taken care of him sometimes when he could, having since given up being a hermit and traveler to be closer to his grandson, and his son, and daughter-in-law. The white-haired man would never admit it, but he cared greatly for his student and the Mont's growing family. As for the rest of the Leaf, they were always busy living their lives. Neji and Tenten had finally tied the knot in April. Ino had started to date Shino, much to everyone's surprise. There was even talk that they would get married soon. Shikimaru remained single, having stated that relationships were too troublesome. Choji had found a wonderful civilian woman who, had the same love of food as he did. They, while not married, were expecting a child soon. They had plans to marry in the next few months. Lee and Ayame's first date had been a marvelous success. The woman had managed to get Lee to show a deep and caring side to him that not many had seen. Lee in turn had calmed down considerably, becoming more mature and responsible. He too had spent a large portion of his time with Kazuo, as he was the godfather. Ayame and Fu were the best of friends, and they helped each other run their respective businesses too. Fu would help at the now much larger Ichiraku's ramen stand while Ayame helped with managing the businesses that occupied the Namikaze district. The relationship between the young green beast and the ramen girl had gone amazingly smooth after the first date, and they had gotten married not even 2 months ago. That day, Guy had cried for hours on Kakashi, much to the copy ninja's despair. The wedding had been small, just family and close friends. All of the rookies, except the dubbed Black Trio, made up of Hinata, Kiba, and Sakura, had attended. As for the 3 shinobi of the Leaf, they had formed a team that was reported to be the worst possible. They never practiced together, and their teamwork was atrocious. They had the largest of failed missions on their record, and they all had one thing in common. They wanted to do harm to the Namikaze family. Sakura still had it in her fangirl head that Naruto was still madly in love with her, and openly flirted with him like a cheap whore. She took on seduction missions mostly, and had started to take to prostitution to pay for her expensive tastes. Hinata had become cold and cruel, and used the cage bird seal almost exclusively on her sister for no reason. It had gotten so bad that Hiashi had gone to Naruto and begged him to take the now 8-year-old girl into his home. Hanabi was 5 before the time skip. Fu had convinced Naruto to take the girl in, on the condition the cage bird seal be nullified. Hiashi agreed and Hanabi now saw Naruto and Fu as surrogate parents. The final member of the team, Kiba, had become a sadistic brute. He was reported by both clientele and allies that he had tried to rape several women in the past. He was now serving a 10-year sentence for the attempted assassination of Kazuo to get to Fu. As Tsunade thought all of this, the door to her office opened and Fu walked in, a green kimono and tabi with socks on. Kazuo had his dark green hair spiked in a wild look that was covered by an orange toad hat Jiraiya had gotten him. He wore orange footy pajamas and had his tiny thumb in his mouth. He looked at Tsunade with his deep blue eyes and giggled. Grammy. Kazuo had said his first word at dinner when Jiraiya and Tsunade had come over with Lee and Ayame for dinner one night. During the meal, Kazuo had looked at her intently and after a few moments spoken the word, Grammy, at the busty blonde. Needless to say, Tsunade liked the name coming from him. Fu smiled as she passed the baby to Tsunade. He's been so excited to see you. All morning he's been jumping up and down, saying Grammy over and over again. Well, I am the greatest grandma in the world. But sometimes, I wonder if we spoil him, Tsunade said. Most likely. He's just loved by pretty much everyone in the Leaf. Even Hanabi loves him like a brother, and you know how cold she was at first. It was true. Hanabi had been cold and angry with Naruto and Fu for a few weeks after her father all but exiled her from the Hyuga. But after a few weeks, she had warmed up to Fu and talked to her about her experiences with the cage bird seal. She had even asked if she could be adopted by the couple, causing them to consider it. After consideration and speaking to Hiashi, they did. She was now Hanabi Namikaze, the proud daughter of the Orange Hokage. Yeah, that's true. So what do you have planned for the day? Well, I have to go over some bank statements and then speak to the market manager. So, ask me after I get back over a nice bottle of sake. And what is Naruto doing today? He said something about finding another income via his amazing writing skills. You know that he's been getting more and more interested in writing after he spoke with Pop. True. Well, have a good day and stay away from stress. By the way, is there any reason you seem to be glowing? Fu grinned as she said. Well, I was hoping to keep it a secret, but I may be pregnant again. I need to get examined by either you or Shizune at some point, but Chomei has informed me of a disturbance in the force of my chakra. I'll set up an appointment later on. Now have a good day, Fu, and remember, you have a date with Naruto tonight. After Fu had left, Tsunade went to the Hokage closet and sent chakra to the seal on the door. Opening it, it revealed a nursery that had been, with the use of seals by Jiraiya and Naruto, expanded to make a nursery for Kazuo to use while he stayed with Tsunade during the day. Setting the child on the floor and securing the door, Tsunade bonded with her grandson. Elsewhere in the Leaf Village, Hanabi giggled as she rode her new father's shoulders around the village. She loved spending time with him. When she had lived with the Hyuga clan, she was always keeping a neutral look on her young face. Now, she could smile and grin all she wanted. And she did it often. She had changed over the year with Naruto and Fu. She had grown her hair out, with it now reaching her waist. She wore a light purple sundress with blue sandals on her feet. Naruto wore a blue long-sleeved shirt with blue pants taped at the ankles. He had his Jonin vest on, unzipped, and his straw hat on. He had a cross between a boot and a shinobi sandal on his feet. Carrying his adopted daughter on his shoulders, Naruto laughed as she asked him to go and get some dango. He loved his life with Fu. Their family had grown larger, and with the addition of Hanabi, they had 2 wonderful children. And if his nose was right, they might be expecting another soon on the way. He smiled in bliss as he walked, his long legs striding with confidence and pride. Konoha was in a golden age of power and wealth, but Tsunade had managed to keep arrogance down by sending half of the money they made to the various poor people and villages in Fire Country. The elemental nations were at peace, even if only for now. The Akatsuki had been quiet for a long time, with all Jinchuriki accounted for. Life couldn't get any better. Setting Hanabi down, he ordered 2 plates of dango and led her to a bench. After sitting, he got some tea and poured it for them. Hanabi drank hers, the smile never leaving her face as she did. After she had come to live with Fu and himself, she had been cold to them. But she had warmed up to them and opened up. After a long talk with Fu, she had come to him, asking to join his family. After talking with Hiyashi, who was okay with it, he officially adopted her. But a few days after the adoption, Hinata had shown up, slightly inebriated, demanding that he give her Hanabi. To put it simply, he refused. She had snarled at him, moving to incapacitate him with her gentle fist. She would have succeeded if he was slower. But he wasn't. After a brief fight, she had been sent to spend the night in the village jail. After, she had left them alone for the time being. He looked at Hanabi and was about to speak when a loud voice broke the tranquil silence. "What do you mean you won't pay?" He looked over to see Sakura talking to a man. She was dressed in her hooker outfit, consisting of ridiculously tight clothing in pink and very, very high heels. She snarled as she pulled out a kunai, stabbing the man in the chest, right in his heart. Naruto's eyes widened as he turned to a scared and shocked Hanabi. "Hanabi, go to the Hokage tower and tell Grammy to get the anbu. I'll deal with this." She nodded as she ran as fast as her 8-year-old feet could carry her as Naruto stood from his seat and made his way over to Sakura. With lightning-fast strikes, he knocked the Haruno whore, as she was called, out cold. He sighed as a few moments later Anbu arrived and retrieved her unconscious form. He saw Hanabi crying to the side and walked over, kneeling down to her level. Wiping her wet cheeks he smiled at her. "Hey, Hanabi, wanna go and get some ice cream and grab Kazuo so we can spend the day with Fu? Just us as a family?" Seeing her nod, he smiled. That was just the thing she needed to forget this, while brief, shocking event. Picking her up, and causing her to giggle, he placed her back onto his shoulders, both forgetting about the plate of dango left behind. Naruto looked at Tsunade as she explained why he was promoted to Jonin, and sighed as he sat back. He was being promoted so that he could come with her to the Cage Summit in the Land of Iron, as some of the concerns regarded him and his family. Despite the excellent way they hid the birth of Kazuo, as well as Naruto's parentage, the information managed to leak out to the rest of the nations, and the various leaders were in an uproar about a new Biju being born, the 10-tailed wolf. No doubt the more shrewd of the Cage, like the Raikage and Tsuchikage, would demand that the boy be given to them, while Tsunade had no intention of letting anyone steal away her grandson. As for the Namikaze, he was just pissed that some fool of a Cage had the nerve to try and rip his family apart. No doubt things would get worse now that Fu was confirmed to be pregnant with twins, and was 3 months along. After speaking with the Kyuubi and Hanabi, it was confirmed that any children they had would become a Jinchuriki of a higher-tailed beast. So, when the twins were born, they would be the Jinchuriki of the 11 and 12-tailed beasts respectively. The seals holding them back would be a combination of the seals of both Naruto and Fu, in that Naruto's was unable to be broken without his permission, while they would have access to dust release and the Biju chakra of the seal Fu had. The green-haired woman's seal had been modified by Jiraiya to act like Naruto's in that it was unbreakable without her permission. But, as with all things, it wasn't perfect. It actually took both Naruto and Jiraiya a lot of time to make the seals exactly as they wanted it, and periodically updated them with anything that came to mind to both seal and prevent the unsealing of the tailed beasts. As it were, Kazuo had the best seal out of all of them, and the seals placed on both Naruto and Fu were modeled after the young boys. Despite all of this, the leaders were intent on either taking Kazuo or declaring war over his Jinchuriki status. Naruto sighed as he looked out the window and out at the village. "Granny, is there any way we can prevent some kind of political chaos? Or am I going to lose my family, or bring a new age of war to the 5 great villages? Not to mention Fu will go on a warpath and try to personally hunt down anyone." Tsunade just looked at him in sympathy. She knew it must be hard, what with his loyalty to the village and his absolute loyalty to his family. It had to be difficult for him to see his own child being spoken of like a tool. "Don't worry, no matter the outcome, I'll stand by you and Fu, your kids, Lee and Ayame, and the rest of the Konoha 12 as well." Elsewhere with Fu smiled as she walked through the Namikaze district, her now apparent pregnant belly leading the way, happy to see everyone living their lives in bliss. Despite not being able to be a shinobi anymore, she had found purpose and love in her life. She had a family, something that not many Jinchuriki had, a beautiful son, an adopted daughter, and a wonderful husband. As she walked, she noticed that she was near the red light district, an undesirable part of town. Looking curiously, she walked through and examined the place. In all honesty, it wasn't that bad. It was in the older section of the village, and could use repair work, but for the most part it was pretty nice. She paused and thought for a moment about maybe purchasing it with the funds of the Namikaze clan, and repairing the buildings, and generally improving the section of the village. Turning and going home with the intent of asking her beloved husband if he approved, Fu saw Konohamaru walking down the street. The genin had grown up, that was certain. No longer was he a short pipsqueak, he now stood at a solid 5 feet 5 inches, with a lean body for speed and power. He had grown his brown hair out to look like Naruto's, and had a pair of blacked-out goggles around his neck, while his forehead protector was where it was designed for. He wore a black long-sleeved shirt and pants, with black shinobi sandals. Simple, but he was a shinobi. No bright or flashy colors to be seen. "Hey Konohamaru," the lime-haired woman greeted happily. For his part, Konohamaru just smiled and walked up to the woman. "I see that you've graduated. Congratulations." He, thanks. Tomorrow's team assignments, and I have my fingers crossed that the boss will be promoted so he can be my sensei." The young boy said with a grin. "Well then, guess I should put in a request for you on my team then, huh?" A jovial voice said from behind the two. Looking back, they saw Naruto, his appearance having changed to accommodate his jonin status, wearing the traditional clothing and vest, while having his red and black haori over his shoulders. Fu giggled and rushed to kiss her husband, who gladly returned it and rubbed her swollen stomach. He looked at Konohamaru, who frowned and said in a dull voice, "I am not kissing you." Naruto burst out laughing, his boisterous laughs echoing throughout the village. Fu giggled as she shook her head, a smile on her face as she did. No matter what mood she was in, Naruto managed to make her smile. They stopped when they heard a shrill voice from behind them, and Naruto muttered, "I forgot, she got out." They turned and saw the, still a complete slut bag, Sakura standing by a corner, wearing ridiculous hooker clothes, and acting with as much pride as she could muster. Konohamaru silently swore he would never ever touch that. Naruto sighed as he turned his back on his former teammate and smiled a strained smile. "Come on, we have a lot to talk about." Later that night, just like Naruto had predicted, Fu had nearly gone on the warpath and marched off to assassinate the rival Kages. Naruto managed to calm her down slightly, but she was still fucking pissed, and she took it out on a poor genin by releasing Tora. She was that pissed. They had bathed and bedded the children, with Kazuo sleeping soundly in his first, big boy, bed, which was still pretty tiny, and Hanabi in her lavender room. They stayed up and spoke late into the night, after Naruto convinced Tsunade to let him have Konohamaru and 2 others as a team, and spoke of what they would do. This was the scene Jiraiya walked into after he had been given a message by a messenger toad. "What's wrong, brat? What's going on that has you and your lady so riled up?" Naruto sighed as he told Jiraiya all that he had been told by Jiraiya. When he was finished, he had one thing to say. "No matter what happens, we lose. I refuse to give them either Kazuo or Fu, but if I don't, it's war." "What do I do?" The toad sage just sighed as he leaned against a wall and closed his eyes. Truth be told, he was fucking pissed. They had the gall to demand his grandson? The gall to try and rip away what could be the last family he ever had. Not on his watch. We have several options. The first few are obvious. But we can also use this to our favor. Depending on who makes what accusations at the Cage Summit will decide the outcome and subsequent reaction. If it's Iwa, we can afford to go to war, because they still haven't truly recovered from the Third Shinobi World War. If it's Kumo, we may have a major problem. They're stubborn and the Hokage is a shrewd man. He may resort to kidnapping. If it's Kiri, then they have no room to make demands, and can easily be defeated through politics. So all we really need to worry about is Iwa and Kumo, the Tsuchikage and Hokage? Seems easy enough, Naruto commented. It did seem fairly easy, at least to him. With Kazuo's birth, and Fu being pregnant again with the possibility of twins, then that means Konoha would have five-tailed beasts at their disposal. A clear and present threat to every other nation. Like with Kazuo, the potential twins would be the containers of the 11 and 12-tailed Biju. Each one more powerful than the 9-tailed Kyuubi and the 10-tailed Ukami. Then there was the Akatsuki. They had been quiet, very much so, despite having already captured 4 out of 5 of the Jinchuriki. Jiraiya's informant had done his job and informed the white-haired hermit that they were trying to deduce a way to break the seals on Naruto, Kazuo, Fu, and any children they had. The leader was apparently upset that whatever he had planned was sent down the shithole, and was looking for revenge. All that mattered right now, however, was surviving the next few months as a family. Elsewhere, Sakura Haruno had fallen far. Very, very far. What once was a girl with many prospects and a bright future had turned into a disgusting whore who was barely managing to survive in life. After the incident where she stabbed one of her clients, her shinobi license had been suspended, and she had to pay a very hefty fine. With the recent economic boon in Konoha, in no small part thanks to combined efforts of Fu Namikaze and Ayame Lee, people weren't as strapped for cash as they were. With this came a certain glow in the village, and even the cheapest of places charged a good deal of money to be rented. Money she didn't have, so here she was, standing in front of the ever-regal and bitchy Hinata Hyuga, listening as the lavender-haired woman explained her plan. A grin made its way across the flat-chested prostitute as she shook the hands of a, incredibly reluctant, Hinata. But first, they had a certain mutt to retrieve from prison. With Choji Akamichi had never been as excited as he was now. After years of work, years of special dieting and training, he had managed to replace all of his fat with muscle, and was actually very bulky instead of fat. He would never be lean, and honestly, he never wanted to be. He was happy with his body, happy with all the work he put into it fighting alongside his friends. Despite the relatively young age of the Konoha 9, not to mention Ino, his fiancée, couldn't keep her hands off of him. Life was good with all of his friends by his side, and the good times could be alluded to the Namikaze family. So when he heard Hinata and Sakura hatch an evil plot to ruin both the reputation and bank accounts of the Namikazes, he was rather put off and upset. So, doing as he knew to do, he reported the incident to Lady Tsunade, who thanked him, and told him to keep his ears open. Something was going down soon. But, for now, they cast aside the seriousness for some lighter conversation topics. They spoke of Fu's idea of renovating the red light district and increasing the general value of the village by offering jobs to the undesirables of the village, increasing the village's income through the extra taxes, expanding the living districts, as well as one day expanding the village to include a second ring, and one day, a third. Such ambitions had garnered Fu to be considered one of the best businesswomen in the elemental nations, surpassing even the late Gato. Tsunade had spoken extensively to Fu about attempting to branch out and not only keep business in Konoha, but also in other countries as well. Talks were still being made in Wave about making a shipping, fishing, warehouse business, under new clauses and rules made by the Wave Diamo, Tazuna. Talks soon went to the future baby, Wise, were coming, and plans made for the eventual birth. Fu, being the woman she was nearly 100% sure that it was twins, one boy and one girl, and had threatened both Naruto and Jiraiya when they attempted to argue that it could just be one baby, and a girl at that. Now, both had learned through the years that Naruto had come back from his trip that Fu had one of the most dangerous tempers ever, and was willing to hit anyone who annoyed and or pissed her off. The saying "hell hath no fury like a woman pissed with a chainsaw and explosive goats" comes to mind. Especially when it's her time of the month, or she has one of her emotional days. But that's a story for another day. So, any ideas for some names? Jiraiya asked in a curious tone. He, in all honesty, wanted them to name a kid after him. It would be really cool if they did. Naruto looked at his wife and smirked as he said, "Well, if it's a boy, Jiraiya. If it's a girl, well, Fu kinda wants to name the next girl we have after her mother, Haiko." The old sage smiled proudly as he looked at his student, godson, grandson. He didn't see the orange-wearing brat he met nearly 6 years ago anymore. Now he saw a near-perfect copy of both Minato and Kushina in him, and he couldn't be any more prouder. The boy had truly surpassed even him in all departments, and while Jiraiya wasn't quite ready to retire yet, he was confident that Naruto would be able to handle the tasks and duties of the Toad Sage. Elsewhere, land of rice. Sasuke Uchiha read the reports that Orochimaru's spies had dug up regarding Konoha and its recent economic, military, and political boom, as well as the strengths and weaknesses of the village itself. While the Uchiha had no love for the village, he did want to test himself against his old comrade again, and prove once and for all that the blonde was nothing. He also noted, with a heavy scowl, that the Jinchuriki was also a father, and was expecting a new one, or if the rumors were correct, twins, to be born. This wouldn't do in his eyes, as he plotted to harness the power of the new Biju that would be born with them, and gave an evil smirk as he did. After he dealt with Itachi, he would target Konoha, and get himself 5 new pets. Back in Konoha, Hanabi Namikaze was currently sitting in the training room of the Namikaze Manor, practicing with her uncle Lee and her cousin Neji on combining the gentle fist and the strong fist to make the two better. Ever since Hinata had done the things she did, and went off the deep end, she had trained herself to be a good kunoichi and escape the stagnant way of the Hyuga clan. She was incredibly thankful that she had escaped, and was happy with her new mom and dad. She wanted to make them proud, and did everything she could to do so, and while she wasn't as antisocial as she had been before, she was still not comfortable with other kids her age. Considering how fast she had to grow up, she was very mature for her age. Now though, she could feel a storm brewing for everyone, and while no one had openly said anything, she could tell that they were all on edge, waiting for something to happen. So, she would be prepared. Naruto stood at the gates of Konoha alongside both Kakashi and Tsunade, ready to travel to the Land of Iron for Cage Summit. It was quite the sight, he mused to himself, to see so many of the people who had hated him so much during his childhood treat him with such respect, if only because he owned a good portion of their homes and businesses now, thanks in no small part to his amazing wife, Fu. Said woman was at the gates, too, with both Kazuo and Hanabi there too, currently being held in a loving embrace by Naruto, before getting a gentle kiss on the lips as a parting. She was worried for him, but knew he could handle himself very easily against many threats thanks in no small part due to his Sage and Biju modes, but a wife can worry. Next up was the young Kazuo, and the toddler was nearly in tears about how his daddy was going away. Naruto wiped the boy's eyes and smiled at him, promising to return to him once this business was over. Hanabi was, by far, the best and worst at the goodbye. She tried to put up a brave front, but some tears formed alongside her pale eyes as she hugged her adopted, but still loved very much, dad goodbye. Naruto looked at them, before his gaze went to the newly widowed Shino, who was the only one out of the rookies to be in the village, as the others were on missions, and asked, "I know it may be too soon, but could you perhaps watch out for them? I know you and your daughter are grieving about Kara and her untimely death." It was true, Shino had married a wonderful woman named Kara, who had about 2 months ago, leaving behind a nearly broken Shino and his nearly 1-year-old son. The man had almost broken permanently, but thanks to the efforts and friendship of the other rookies, aside from the 3 who had been dishonored one way or another, he had managed to pull himself together and raise his little boy. Shino just nodded. He understood why Naruto was nervous. The blonde had never been away more than 1 to 2 weeks at the most from his still-growing family, but this summit would take a while to get to. Then the actual meeting could go on for a long time. "I will be sure to stop by, and no doubt Lee will do as well, alongside Choji and Shikamaru." "Why?" "Because you're our friend. And no doubt Lord Jiraiya will be staying with her until your return." "Thanks Shino." He walked to Tsunade's side, and after one last glance to his family, began to walk beside his Hokage. Later with Fu, the lime-haired woman sighed sadly as she cooked a simple dinner of chicken and rice. It felt empty in the house without Naruto, and it made her frown a little. He had been the light in her life. He had saved her from the darkness that most Jinchuriki fell into as a result of their upbringing, and he had given her everything she wanted. Jiraiya, having decided he would bunk with them until Naruto returned, gave her a smile as he helped prepare the chicken. "Don't worry, Fu. Naruto will be fine, and Tsunade will deal with this situation very easily. I'm not scared for that. I'm scared for what the collateral damage bill will be when those two eventually lose their tempers and beat the living shit out of the other Kage." That answer made Jiraiya nearly collapse in a massive burst of laughter. On the road to the Land of Iron, Naruto looked at the katana he had been working on with a frown as he gazed upon the massive crack in the center of the blade. He had taken up Kenjutsu as a way of giving himself more diversity in combat, but any sword he tried to use would break under the strain of the intense tests he put them through, nearly making 10-10 explode as her metal just wasn't good enough to handle his intense fighting style. Tsunade looked at the blade in an appraising way, before she began to speak to him, catching both his and Kakashi's attention. "You know, they might not break so easily if you bought one made with sea stone metal." "Sea stone metal? What's that?" Naruto inquired. He really wanted a weapon capable of battling Samahata if he ever fought Kisame Hoshigaki, but he hadn't found a single blade capable of meeting his standards for what a sword in high-risk, intensive combat should be. Sea stone is considered the hardest material in the world, harder than even diamonds and most likely an unbreakable material, and has the ability to stop chakra flow, and also have chakra be conducted through it, making it one of the most dangerous, yet most tactically valuable minerals in the world. It can be formed and shaped using a process in the Land of Iron, so if you want to get a weapon made of it. But, from what I can tell, you don't need a sword, you need a jute. The first female Kage intoned in a wise voice Naruto had only heard once when Fu had nearly had a mental breakdown when she was going through a difficult time in her pregnancy. But her last statement caught his interest. "A jute? One of those long, pole-looking swords?" "Yeah," Kakashi said, not looking up from his little orange book. "Your fighting style relies more on beating your opponents into the ground instead of killing them swiftly. A jute would be the best kind of weapon for that style. It's fast, heavy, and can be used one- or two-handed. So, basically, what you two are saying is that I need to see about investing in a jute for myself, made from this sea stone? Well, where would I get some, and where would I find someone capable of making a jute? Why, in the Land of Iron, of course. Iron has one of the largest populations of the most talented weaponsmiths in the world, and one of them is bound to know exactly how to work with sea stone. If done right, you'll be given an unbreakable weapon that could very well become a legendary one, right next to the 7 Swords of the Mist." Tsunade said helpfully. "So, if I really wanted to, I could probably have several weapons made from sea stone, each one different than the other, find some people to use them in Konoha, then start an organization similar to the 7 Swordsmen in Mist?" Naruto asked in a curious tone. It had just occurred to him that they didn't really have anything famous or amazing as an organization that the other villages had. Kiri had the 7 Swordsmen, Iwe had the Explosion Corps, Kumo had the Light Brigade, Suna had its Puppeteer Division, but Konoha had nothing to bring fame to itself, as the 12 Guardians worked for the Diamo, so he figured why the hell not. Tsunade thought on it, and nodded. Yes, something like that would be good for the village, and give us more fame to bring more missions in. I give you the go-ahead as your Kage to buy 4 weapons, including 2 jutes, to be used as weapons for the future hockey squad of Konoha. Why 2 jutes though? Why not let me just get the one? The way I see it, you'll need a weapon for most of your shinobi career, so I have decided to pull a civilian council and use the village's money to purchase my future successor a finely made weapon. And we can use the excuse for its purchase as a trip expense. It's genius. Naruto had to give it to her. When Tsunade wanted to be, she could be clever and cunning. Like a fox. Back in Konoha, Fu smiled at everyone she passed as she walked through the red light district, and they smiled back. Ever since the groundbreaking of what had been named, by Tsunade, as Project Rebirth, many builders had been called in to renovate the older, more rundown sections of the village. Things were going well, as with an improvement in buildings, so would the general wealth of the village, showing that they cared for the older parts of their village, all the while bringing in newer and more modern things. They were still a ways off from their goal, but things were looking brighter as Tsunade approved of a program that gave homeless and jobless people jobs working as civil servants, things like street cleaners and garbage men, in exchange for a place to live and a cut to wages to pay for the rent of an apartment. It was an ingenious idea, and one Fu approved of. As the woman walked calmly to a newer construction site, she heard a voice she hadn't heard in nearly an entire year. "Oh, it's you." Turning, the young mother was greeted to the sight of one Sakura Haruno, who had gone back to living with her civilian council parents. The pink-haired woman had changed, once more, and was now a bit more tolerable once she got rid of the smell of stale and sweat that had clung to her for a while. She was now wearing a normal, civilian dress that was a light rose color, with her pink hair cascading down to her upper back, as opposed to Fu's, which had grown out to just above her knees, reminiscent of her deceased mother-in-law. "Hello, Sakura. How have you been these past few months?" the Namikaze female asked politely. If she was going to speak to someone, despite the idiotic and whorish nature that they may have had, she was going to be polite. She was a lady, after all. "Oh, I've been well. Things have been looking up for me, and hopefully, by the end of the year, I'll be married." The pinkhead replied. "Really? You're engaged? Congratulations," Fu said, her smile false as she hoped beyond hope that whoever had the balls to marry Sakura was a truly kind and patient man. Sakura grit her teeth, before her genial smile returned once more. "Yes, I am. And believe me, my future husband is a very important man in the government." That set off some alarm bells in Fu's head, as she regarded Sakura once more. Looking at her, she saw the subtle signs of an attack on either her person or the threat of an attack. She put her hands into the oversized sleeves of her kimono and gripped one of the hidden kunai in them. "Well, all the same, I wish you both a happy marriage." Sakura just gave a smirk that made Fu want to rip her throat out. But it was what she said next that made her nearly lose all semblance of calm and collected. "How are your children, by the way? Word on the grapevine is that Naruto's out of the village with Lady Tsunade, and isn't here. It would be a shame if something were to happen, wouldn't it?" Fu saw the threat and responded with, "Well, my children will be protected fairly well. You see, their grandfather, Jiraiya of the Sannin, is looking after us, not to mention Shino, Lee, and the rest of the rookies are as well. We, in all honesty, have nothing to worry about." Her lips turned to thin slits as she watched the green-haired girl end the conversation before any kind of real information could be ascertained as to where the Namikaze home was. All in all, Sakura was not happy when she got home that evening. As for Fu, the wife of Naruto Namikaze was absolutely furious. Everyone in the street that day, seeing her expression, moved out of the way quickly. Despite being unable to use chakra anymore, the woman was still really scary. Her female fury was quick to becoming something of an urban legend, and many had felt her ire. With Team Hokage, their arrival in the Land of Iron was quiet, as the bitter winds had forced them to all change clothes to something warmer. Naruto had chosen to wear a dark gray, long-sleeved shirt tucked into dark gray pants and boots, with a white cloak around him and a mint green scarf around his neck. He had put on heavy leather gloves that covered the entirety of his hands, with black Anbu armor over his main articles of clothing. Tsunade had chosen to wear closed, wedge-heeled boots with her normal clothes on, except for a bear fur coat she had obtained after killing said bear with her bare hands. You said hands. Kakashi just wore boots, having channeled chakra through his body to heat himself up, and not told the others as punishment for accidentally lighting one of his books on fire. The forests and mountains of the country were beautiful, and if it wasn't for the reason of it being so fucking cold here, then Naruto was sure that he would want to retire here. But, as it was, he liked the heat of the Land of Fire better, and felt that such a cold place wasn't suited for him or his family. He let out a deep breath and watched as it came out a cool mist, a smirk on his face as he walked beside his cage and sensei. He paused suddenly as he saw a bush move slightly, before he took a kunai out and threw it at the bush, making the hidden rabbit come out. "Naruto, what is it with you and trying to kill rabbits?" Kakashi asked, referencing the wave mission. "Hey, that one was Haku substituting with the damn thing. I was right in my paranoia. Besides, I was hungry. We should stop now, anyways. Tomorrow we should be at the Three Wolves Mountain, where the meeting is." And while there, buy some sea stone and have them forged into the weapons you need and want. The actual meeting isn't for another 4 days. Got it, boss lady. Naruto replied, his face set in a serious expression. This meeting had to go well, or else his family would be fractured beyond repair, and that wasn't something that he would ever let happen. And, yeah, it's a filler chapter till the meeting. I have the entire thing planned out, you see, and we'll just have to wait. As for the inclusion of sea stone, I did that so that Naruto can bring fame to the village, while at the same time have a jute that was unbreakable. It was tense, the first meeting of the cage in the summit, to put it mildly. Everyone present could feel the anger and resentment in the air as all parties awaited for someone to take the floor, and after several tense minutes, it was the samurai leader, Mifune, who did so. I would like to welcome you all to the Land of Iron, and the Cage Summit. Before we begin our meeting, I would ask that you introduce yourselves, as well as your bodyguards. It was a reasonable request, and not one they would really, honestly want to refuse. All of them, even the bodyguards, was in the bingo book, and to show off power here could be beneficial. 4th Hokage, A, with Darui and C. Sandame Tsuchikage, Onoki, with Kuretsuchi and Akatsuchi. 5th Mizukage, Maid Terumi, with Ao and Chojuro. 5th Kage, Gaara of the Sand, with Tamari and Kankuro. 5th Hokage, Tsunade Senju, with Kakashi Hitaki and Naruto Namikaze. Naruto's name got a lot of different reactions, some scowled, some looked interested, and some looked neutral. Tsunade smirked as she cast a glance at A and Onoki, both of whom were growling slightly at her blatant insult. By having the man here, and since he was one of the subjects as well as his wife, he had a say in anything having to do with him. It was a carefully devised plan, created by Tsunade and Jiraiya, to have the best chance of getting things their way. But, it was also risky. If things didn't got their way, then the chances of all of them going home were very slim. Ah, Namikaze-san, I have heard many things about you. Mifune said in a curious tone. Truth be told, he had gotten curious as to why several orders for 4 katanas made of sea stone, and 1 jute, were ordered, and had his curiosity grow when he learned it was the Namikaze who ordered the specialized blades and weapons. Hopefully good, the blonde said pleasantly. Nothing but the best. And congratulations on your healthy child. I look forward to seeing just how bright our future is with your family leading the way. The aged samurai said pleasantly, before he got serious. Alright, let us begin this summit. The opening topic for this evening is the reaffirmation of the purpose for this meeting between the cage. A snorted in derision as he stood angrily. This meeting is about Konoha having too many Jinchuriki. Mifune sent a withering glare at A. He never really liked the man, as he seemed to be too controlled by his emotions, choosing to act before thinking, and was a generally arrogant man. Before he could reprimand the giant, Onoki nodded in agreement, the fence-sitter having a nasty snarl on his face. Raikage-sama is correct. Konoha has gained too many Biju for any other village to be safe, and may be making an army of Jinchuriki. Such a thing cannot be allowed to happen. Konoha must hand over some of their Jinchuriki. Naruto had a stony face as he listened to the fools as they spoke of tearing his family apart, something that, in his eyes, was an unforgivable sin. How dare these old, decrepit old fools speak of his wife and children, as if they were some kind of weapons. Listen here, Tsuchikage-sama, but it is illegal to force civilians to leave a village if they don't wish to. And, as my ever gentle and caring wife is a civilian, having joined the village as such, you cannot remove her from the village. Neither with my child and future children, as they are also still civilians until, and if, they graduate from the academy. Onoki simply glared at Naruto as if his very existence was a sin, and in his weathered eyes, it was. It was no rumor that the Tsuchikage held more animosity for the Namikaze clan than any other in Iwa, as he felt that the clan had far too much power already. They had the Flying Thunder God, which his spies reported Naruto knew, as well as a Jinchuriki. Combined with the fact that a new Biju had been born, and more could be produced from what reports on the matter stated, he wanted to both stick it to the Namikaze clan, Konoha, and have his own army of Jinchuriki. And considering the fact that the only Jinchuriki he had left was Roshi, and the fact that he would never convince the Raikage to an alliance to raise an army of Jinchuriki with his female Jinchuriki, made him want the woman who had already birthed a naturally occurring Jinchuriki. Then I demand that you be forced to become sterile. "We cannot allow Konoha to gain any more power," A yelled. His reasons were much less personal than the Tsuchikage's. He didn't care if the Namikaze clan was restored or not. All he cared about was ensuring his village survived in the end. It was as simple as that. He spent all his life trying to keep Kumo afloat, as they weren't exactly doing very well in terms of the economy, but were simply keeping above the poverty line by a hair. Why didn't they get it? In Konoha, Fu sighed as she cleaned Kazuo of his mess, the young toddler having decided to jump into a giant mud pile he had found. Normally, Naruto was the one who made sure that Kazuo was clean and fresh, but since he wouldn't be home for a few weeks, that job was delegated to her. And while she could have just sent the job to Shizune, who was helping her today, she felt that she had an obligation to look after the young child. Things had been interesting ever since Naruto left to accompany Tsunade and Kakashi to the summit, and people had been a bit more hostile towards her and her child. Not in an open way, but in muttered and whispered comments that she caught every now and then. Of course, they wouldn't dare harm her or anything related to Naruto in any way, as it wasn't that much of a rumor that he was named Tsunade's heir to the position of Hokage, and the fact that Jiraiya of the Sannin was staying with them until the return of Naruto. Not even a recently paroled Kiba was stupid enough to try anything. Kazuo knew none of this, and simply went back to playing in the garden, throwing the wooden kunai and shuriken under the direction of Rock Lee, who had come over with a yame some while ago, and began some light beginner target practice. Naruto had begun to train him in small things, like shurikenjutsu and body training, and Lee had promised to keep it up alongside Jiraiya. Things were going good here, but Fu had to wonder just what would happen soon, as she felt that something important was going to be going on soon. Back at the summit, Naruto had to admit, if only grudgingly, that the Raikage did have a slight point after he finished explaining, as calmly as the emotional man could, just why he wanted one of Naruto, Fu, or Kazuo. In essence, he had explained that Jinchuriki were juggernauts on the battlefield. Even the Ichibi Jinchuriki was given immense power by the Biju, and having more than two was a cause for concern. A deeper meaning behind it was, a single Jinchuriki, trained to even a small fraction of its potential, was worth equal to, if not more than, 500 Jonin-level shinobi. And from his perspective, Konoha was building, however slowly, an army of these juggernauts. It was understandable, but that didn't excuse his blatant disrespect for the base laws set down by all the Diamo that even the Kage had to obey. One of them being that civilians, despite statuses such as Jinchuriki or not, could not be traded nor given to other villages. As non-combatants, they didn't have any kind of say in things of political or militaristic nature. And considering the fact that Fu and Kazuo, unless the child graduated from the academy, were civilians, the only one that could really be traded was Naruto, and he was the official clan head of the resurrected Namikaze clan. Not even Onoki could stand against them, and their points were rendered mute, and the two men fell silent when Naruto pointed this out. Silence reigned for a few moments as all sides recollected their thoughts, but not before a samurai ran in, garnering their attention. Mifune-sama, a shinobi has infiltrated the summit. Mifune stood, his visage stern as he looked at his subordinate. Who would dare intrude this meeting? He is a former Konoha shinobi, Sasuke Uchiha. Back in Konoha, eye twitching at the stupidity of people, Fu simply sighed as she dealt with a complaining merchant, who was arguing with her over the prices of vegetables in the market of the Namikaze district. In all honesty, he was being a complete bitch when it came to the matter, and after a few more moments, she simply glared and said in a no-nonsense fashion to suck it up and get on with it, before twirling and leaving her green kimono. She really wished Naruto were here, as his presence was very intimidating when he wanted it to be. But, in all honesty, she wanted him here because he was her husband, and being away from him for extended periods of time really made her uncomfortable, a testament to her life in Taki, and the hardships she had faced there. He was one of the few people she truly felt comfortable around, and he had helped her so much in the years they had been together. Simply having enough, she turned and walked away, not noticing the pair of lavender eyes that followed her form, nor the hateful, angry glare that was sent her way. Kazuo was with Jiraiya, spending some time with the old pervert, while Hanabi was at the academy. She was all alone today. Such thoughts made her sigh even more sadly as she entered her home. Sitting on the couch, she wrapped her arms around herself and some tears fell from her eyes. She had never felt so small before, as Naruto had been there to fill her life, and she never longed for companionship when he was around. It was only during this time of separation that she realized just how much she had come to depend on his steadfast companionship, and how much she really needed him. Naruto-kun, please return home fast. I don't know how long I can bear not having you around. Fu thought sadly as even more tears fell from her eyes. It had been nearly 4 or 5 years since they had last seen each other, and the first time they met in all of that they were trying to kill one another. It was ironic in a bitter sense. Almost poetic. They had both grown, both made lives for themselves in some form or manner, Naruto more so than the oh-so-great Uchiha clan avenger. And their strength was at least on equal terms to the other, with Naruto being stronger if only because he had massive stores of chakra and more, newer ways of fighting. From the small amount of time Naruto had seen Sasuke fight the samurai, he had noticed that he still fought with the same arrogance and simple, basic plans of sending out his jutsu willy-nilly, with no plan of using them together for conjunction attacks. The Namikaze patriarch would admit that he had become more skilled under Orochimaru, but he obviously wasn't Kage level, and attacking a meeting comprised of shinobi who were, at least, high Jonin to low Kage level shinobi was a rash and foolish move. But, then again, Sasuke wasn't known for his patience and ability to think when he gets upset and angry, or even a little frustrated, so he must have been fairly wound up to do something as stupid as this. What's more, he only seemed to have increased his lightning-style jutsu, and even then all he did was make a few variations of the Chidori. Now, Naruto wasn't one to toot his own horn, all that much, but he knew he could beat Sasuke. His skills had become deadly, and with his wind release, he was the natural enemy of lightning, and was the most capable of defeating the man. It was like all Sasuke had done the last few years was brewed and perfect his lightning style. There was no variation. No adaptability for different situations. Yeah, he had kenjutsu, but at some point he would fight against people with a method of countering that advantage. Running through hand signs, he held out his hand in an open palm and let the wind blade cover it before charging forward. Flying swallow. Sasuke heard his call and ducked, but not before a few pieces of his hair fell to the ground, obviously cut by the Namikaze patriarch. Bringing his hand up to his head, he felt his hair and pictured with his mind's eye the damage done. He looked even more like a duck. "Loser, what have you done? Gave a bitch a haircut," was the cheeky reply as Naruto shifted into his taijutsu stance. "And now, I'm gonna beat one." Back with the cage, Tsunade sat in a quiet worry as she, the other cage, and their escorts awaited news of the battle. They could feel the vibrations of the battle, and it was pretty obvious that it was getting very anxious or upset for some reason. He exploded after a few moments, just as she had predicted. "Are we really going to have that brat be the only one to fight this Sasuke Uchiha? Would it not be safer to have us assist him? Raikage-sama, my shinobi is more than capable of handling the Uchiha. To send reinforcements now would be an insult to him. As it is, you need to calm down," Tsunade said as she leaned back in her seat and crossed her arms. The Mizukage raised a delicate eyebrow as she regarded Tsunade for a moment. "You certainly have a lot of faith in your shinobi. Are you certain he will be able to defeat him? Sasuke Uchiha killed his older brother, the infamous Itachi Uchiha, an S-class nuke nen." Tsunade grinned as she leaned forward this time, resting her elbow on the table and her head on her fist. 100%. The fact of the matter is, Mizukage-sama, Naruto is currently being groomed to take over as Hokage, hopefully by the end of the year. And the only reason I don't give him the job right now is because I have to clean house first. Mifune looked curious as he gave the Hokage a steady look. Was he not trained by Jiraiya of the Sannin? Yes, he was, and I must say, he came back from that training trip stronger and more mature than ever. So there is no doubt in my mind that he will beat the Uchiha. Gaara intoned, speaking up for the first time since the meeting's start, and resisting the urge to go and help his brother by burden. Back at the fight, Naruto ducked a kick from Sasuke, retaliating with a punch to the face. Sasuke grunted as it connected, making him skid back a bit before charging forward, his hand covered in lightning. Chidori. Dodging, the Namikaze retaliated with a well-placed ninjutsu of his own. Wind style. Great breakthrough. The wall of wind slammed into his fallen friend, slamming him into the wall, leaving him open. Before Naruto could even get close to finish him, The Uchiha glared evilly and slowly began to melt into mud, making the blonde's eyes widen before he felt his left orb get cut, making him close his eye. Jumping up to evade even more lightning-charged kunai thrown at his back, Naruto took out his own kunai and clashed with Sasuke's Chikudo. "Give up, Naruto. I'm far too strong for you." Sasuke cackled insanely. He didn't get a reply as Naruto pressed his attack and cut into Sasuke's Chikudo with his wind. "No, Sasuke, I'm too strong for you." In an instant, the Chikudo was cut in half, and Naruto's kunai had cut out one of Sasuke's eyes, making the man back away with a roar of pain. Holding the orb in one of his hands, Naruto glared hatefully at the wounded Uchiha, who snarled in hatred at the Namikaze. "We will fight again, Naruto. Not here, not now, but later. As it stands, I now have an inkling as to how you fight. Whatever you say, Sasuke, but know this, if you ever, and I mean ever, come near my family, I will cut you down without hesitation." The ferocity in his voice was startling to Sasuke, who had hoped the blonde would remain an idiot hell-bent on getting him back. Using his remaining eye, Sasuke left via Kamui to lick his wounds. He may have lost his eye to Naruto, the one where he could use Susanoo to be specific, but he took a certain satisfaction in the fact he took one of Naruto's as well. Said blonde sighed as he looked at the M's Sharingan, hoping that by doing what he planned, he could become strong enough to end the farce that was Sasuke and his petty revenge scheme. But, then again, doing so would probably put him on several people's shit lists, and cause some problems for everyone, but, hey, he was Naruto Namikaze. And you don't fuck with Naruto Namikaze. Grabbing his headband, he adjusted it so that it covered his missing eye, and let that side of bangs fall over the black cloth, giving him a mysterious look. Naruto sealed the eye into a seal on his palm so as to keep it safe from the other villages. Hopefully he would be able to get Kakashi to teach him how to use it, as he was pretty sure that he was going to use it as a replacement for his left orb. He just hoped Fu wouldn't flip the fuck out. Back in Konoha, Fu paused as she felt the sudden need to beat her husband, before continuing on her way to pick up some extra ramen for the house that night. She didn't have as much of an addiction to the junky noodle food, as it was called by Jiraiya on several occasions, out of earshot from Naruto, but it was good, and Kazuo absolutely loved eating it. While she would have loved to have Naruto there while she began to get Kazuo ready for the training for his shinobi skills, doing so now would let her have something to do without Naruto, as her mind kept drifting back to the man. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.